Politics Midweek Update. We are joined while hopefully you're having lunch, kick back. You can listen to myself and the 57th governor of the great state of Missouri, Governor Parson. Thank you for joining us here on the Midweek Update.
All right, great to be here, Scott. Beautiful day out there.
So you're coming around the bend for the last time, but there's still a little business to take care of, right?
That's right. That's right. We got a little work to do.
So you got the bill signings. I thought it was the funniest thing. I was sitting in the Senate where I'd normally sit and watch, like I used to watch you sitting there.
Right.
And I heard some senators say, well, we're not going to pass this bill. It was the FRA. Most of the things you could make a logical argument are good, bad, and I get that, right? I got a time for our Democrat friends. If you think something different than me, you might be right. The FRA is you're gonna have to do that.
Correct.
And I thought it was the funniest thing. If you tried to convince Mike Parson to do something, threatening him and saying we're not going to vote on this till he signs something, I was like, wow, that who told you that? That was the funniest thing. And I'll just ask you, was it a coincidence that bill was signed last out of the ones you had on your desk?
Well, you never know. Timing's everything in this whole world. I don't know. They should have checked from with my wife before they said something like that. She would have given a little advice on that one.
Well, I heard that. I thought, well, there's a chance he won't hear it. And then I thought, well, I better tweet that. Just make sure.
We heard it.
I thought there was no way. And it's hard to know. I talked to a House member last night, and I was like, it's hard to realize how little those senators care about you. He thought he'd made one mad. I'm like, they was a freshman. I was like, are you sure they know who you are? It's just hard to imagine the disconnect from the House to the Senate. And you served in both. Yeah. And I remember sitting in your office eating Arby's one night, and you talked about House members, and I was like, well, he used to be one, but that's just how it is.
It is.
And then when you're governor, I mean, no governor's going to dance to the two. I mean, you're going to work with them, but you're going to let them order you around.
It is. There's no question. There's a reason for separations of branches. Yeah. And when you're in the governor's office, you don't have time to even really pay attention to a lot of that stuff. But there's sometimes things happen that is a little humorous to you. Think, somebody says that, you think, oh, okay. And everybody gets to kind of laugh out of it around us. So big deal.
You have some bills on your desk. Does it hit a little different this time? I mean, this is one of the times where your signature is going to change the lives and the laws Missourians live under. In Jeff City, you almost say words like that, and it doesn't ring hard. But your last time, I mean, you've passed a lot of pieces of legislation put on the governor's desk. You've signed a lot on the governor's desk. Yeah. You've been governor. Right. I mean, I look at the things you have to consider. It is one of the last times in your life you're going to have a chance to truly make a difference in a bunch of folks' lives.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. And I think the more you get into this year, just when I know you was at the Cattlemen's on Saturday night, and the more times you speak and you say, but this is probably the last time that you're going to do that. And the reality of it is, we know this is the last time I'm going to be signing any bills. We know it's the last time I'm going to be doing the budget, all of those things. And it's bittersweet. I mean, it's been a heck of a ride for 6 years. You know that. You've been around on that ride. But at the end of the day, it's fine. It's okay. I like the idea of not having a whole lot of bills, to be right honest about it.
Sure.
There's less bills than there ever been. And that's probably a good thing for Missourians.
When did Republicans decide passing more bills was success? I've never quite understood that. I mean, there are things that need to happen, like an FRA. And then look, you got a bill. I watched that 1359. I watched the debate on that. And I'm like, you're protecting rural Missourians from the next governor may not be from Bolivar. Probably won't be.
Yeah, probably not.
And the next governor may not know what it's like to work on a farm.
Yeah.
And being able to protect the folks from that bureaucracy, like bills like that, I don't even know all it does, but essentially you can keep them bureaucrats at bay. That's a heck of a thing to be able to do for folks.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's any question, too, Scott, as I look back on my time as governor. It has paid big dividends to come from where I come from. In the beginnings, where it all started, I want to say, but to have that rural background and still be able to work with the urban areas and be able to bridge that gap, you have to do that as governor. You've got to be able to work with both aspects of the state and where that arena is. And I think I've been very fortunate with the background I have to be able to work with people to get common sense solutions. But one thing you said, I think it's a good message for everyone that's in. We have super majorities right now. Republicans do it in the House and the Senate. And there's not a year goes by that I've been governor that we haven't passed more regulations on people. And we really need to wake up to the fact to say, okay, we probably got more on the books right now than we can possibly ever enforce, or there are probably even some of them shouldn't even be on the books. But it's something I hope the next governor, the next legislative branch realize, hey, we don't need to be doing that.
Well, you give that bureaucracy power, and I look.
That's
I'm
right.
a Jeff City guy. I'm a company town guy. You don't see me going to Columbia. I love Jeff City, but it doesn't matter who you are. You could start off with the best intentions. I watch bureaucrats that are good people. I mean, bureaucrats almost a negative word. They're state employees.
Yeah.
That's the profession they've had.
Right.
But when you got that power, and you get a little discipline, you and the elected official, or even you and the appointed official,
right?
You over time, it could be it's a slippery slope to fall into being a little dictatorial about things.
You got to be real careful about it. And I think some people didn't realize, that there's for better terms, a new sheriff in town, and they like doing things the way they've always done things. Yep. And sometimes you got to adapt to change, and it's one of the things I brought to the table. And you got to be loyal, and you got to be on the team. Is what I ask of anybody that works in the bureaucracy side of things, and make sure you're a public servant. And it's something I try to drive home every day to people.
It's got to be a great. I never thought. You tell me, when you ran, what did you run for House the first time? Did you run in 2006?
Oh gosh, no, it was before that. It was
did you run right
first time?
Okay.
Catherine Hanaway had just taken over, and Jetton was the next speaker when I come in. Rod Jetton. So it was probably 2004, I believe.
Who did you replace when you ran for the House? It wasn't Kenny Lee.
It was no. It was a guy from Stockton. I'm blank on.
So you come in. If somebody had told you you're going to be governor, I've always felt like you're the kind of humble guy that would have been shocked. But if they'd have told you that while you were governor, you were going to redo I-70, you'd have laughed at them, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, somebody did tell me I was going to be the next governor. I told them it was full of probably something we should be talking about.
Must have not been Teresa, right?
No, it wasn't Teresa, but I had some people say that. I said, I'm never going to be governor. I don't want to be governor, But
when you were sworn in as governor, did you think you'd be rebuilding I-70?
No,
I didn't.
No.
Honestly, I just think when you got the social media and you got the folks who's they come to Jeff City to throw a monkey wrench in things. I didn't think you could do something that big. It is an amazing thing you're going to celebrate tomorrow.
Well, to do I-70 is to make the change we have in infrastructure. Nobody dreamed we were going to be able to do that. People have talked about that for decades. Ever since I've been here, people's talked about it. And then the Buck O'Neill Bridge, the Roachport Bridge, the I-270, and all of a sudden the pieces started coming together. And then the economy picked up, and revenues started coming in, and we're saying, hey, and I got to give a shout out to Lincoln. I mean, Lincoln Huff, I mean, he even added to what we were trying to do. We were thinking what you said was a big deal to start it. My whole intent was to do something in St. Louis, Columbia, and Kansas City. And if we did major things there, whoever the next governor is and the next legislators are, you got to connect the dots. I was going to make it simple as I could. You got to connect the dots. And then Lincoln said, well, heck with this. Let's just connect the dots and let's go.
I felt like looking back, I had the sense that maybe there was a little bit of a wink and nod that we might, but really it had to start that way, right? I mean, and if all you'd have done was those three things, that'd have still been a heck of a deal. But you kind of had to start that way. And it felt like as that session went on, I'd see Tuttle running in that office all the time. Yeah. And you could just kind of see something big was brewing. There was an excitement in the air about it. Yeah. It is got to be, when you look back on governor, will there be a bigger day than tomorrow in Columbia?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I mean, there'll be a lot of hype to that. And I mean, that's a game changer, Scott. Yeah. Those are the things that are legacy items that someday my grandkids or somebody yours or your kids are going to be going down that highway, 6 lanes, and they're going to be talking about, whether it's Scott Faughn or anybody else says, they were all talked about that once upon a time.
Yep.
And now you're going to get to see the reality of it. And what that will do for our state will be incredible.
If you're from West Butler County, if you're from Bolivar, I think you truly will benefit from that road. It may be through just the economic water table rising because of that piece of infrastructure, but I think the entire state will truly benefit from that piece of infrastructure.
Scott, you grew up like I grew up in Southeast Missouri. I grew up in Southwest Missouri. There was a time where you think, well, I'm never on I-70, but today's world's changed totally when it comes to driving, where people go and don't go. And now all of us are on I-70 at some point.
Yep.
Whatever you do. So the days that used to be a little bit of outreach, it's not that way anymore. And the economy driver that will be huge.
I noticed you're having that signing in Columbia before they take the bridge down to 1 lane here in town. I'm excited. We'll welcome Stephanie Bell back to Jeff City. But really, it is a different world. You can take 50, that is true. But 70, it says 70 miles an hour, but you can't drive 70 on that right now. Too full, especially going to Kansas City.
I'm telling you, we come back from our trip overseas and we was driving it. You got so many semis out there. Things that's just going to naturally slow you down. And the road's rough. I mean, there's no question about
Yeah,
that.
see,
I mean,
Kent Sism had this made for me in Farmington, talking about roads, out of rebar. That's my
I
style
like
of
it. I
knowledge,
like
but it's a two-fisted side of knowledge just because you can't drink out of one of them.
well, one thing about
Maybe
it,
the
you're gonna
Sism's
have a
can, I
lot of
can't.
knowledge when you get that done.
Boy, I tell you, you have a stronger arm to him.
Yeah.
The governor's race. I watched you give your speech at the Cattleman, and I don't think there's anybody, right wing, Democrat, whatever, that thinks you haven't done a hell of a job as governor. Probably know more about anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You said some nice things about the lieutenant governor. Do you have a timetable? I'll ask you two things. Do you have a timetable on when you're going to pick somebody, or are you going to pick somebody publicly?
Well, I don't think there's any question that's going to happen. I'm not sure what that public statement is,
Yeah.
but I will tell you this, as I told the people Saturday night. Look, all of these guys, no governor in our state's history has picked 5 statewide candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has ever come. So I
lost.
Yeah, I asked Mike Kehoe to be the lieutenant governor when I needed help, and he's been as loyal to me as loyal can be.
Mm-hmm.
And loyalty is a big deal to me. You know, you can go on to the attorney generals. Eric Schmidt, when I put him in attorney general, he's now the U.S. senator. I put him there. He left. Andrew Bailey takes his place because I needed help during that time. And Vivek and Scott Fitzpatrick. So all of these guys, the vast majority of them was one statewide election since then. But look, they all answered the call when I called them. So why would I not be loyal to the people that was loyal to me? I mean, people ask me that question all the time. Are you going to endorse anybody, or are you going to say that? You know, I feel like I endorse people when I put them in those positions and I trust them to do their job, and they've all done a great job. So I'm not sure why I'm going to make any changes, or why I would want to see any changes.
You know what's funny is I hear people on Twitter, Facebook, you know, big tough guys on the keyboard. And if I had to guess, your popularity rating amongst people that tweet more than 10 times a day isn't good. But you look at any real poll from any statewide candidate, and your favorables are off the charts. I mean, so I guess they're looking at the same numbers that I've seen. If you're running, if you're Lincoln Huff, I think it'd be a very big thing for your campaign if they got your support. So that's why they ask, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it. Look, I don't like sitting here and be trying to brag about anything, but
I ain't bragging if it's a scoreboard.
I mean, well, it's kind of like you said, look at the score.
Yeah.
But I've worked hard. I've tried to be a good governor. I've tried to be right for the people of Missouri, and I've been rewarded by that. I mean, you win by 57% when I run for governor in some of the COVID-19 worst times you thought, and then all along those numbers keep going up on us because all we're doing is just common sense approach, trying to make a life better for Missourians, and not getting into all these silly political fights that are out there and just trying to showboat. That's just not who I am. And I think when all of a sudden you've got an 80% approval rating, I know other governors talk about these things, and look, I understand it makes a difference what I say and what I do. But again, I'm just telling you, people's loyal to me, I'm loyal to them. That's all there is to it.
So you got bill signings. It feels like you've taken a little bit longer look at some of these things sometimes. When do you expect to start signing some of them bills or veto them?
Oh, I think as far as bill signs, you'll just see some come out next week.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of simple ones in there, one-page ones that doesn't, won't be hard to do. So we'll try to knock them out. The budget's going to be a whole different deal.
Is the budget, does it fund the state, the one that was passed? Does it adequately fund the state?
Oh, I think it's a little deceptive what was passed. I think anybody that understands the budget process, I mean, you really got to be talking, if you're going to be talking about the budget that you got now, you also got to be talking about the supplemental, which is going to be huge. It's going to be a big supplemental, and somebody's going to get stuck with that.
So if I was you and I had my pin out and I was watching people bragging about a budget that is not particularly serious, to me, it might be tempting to take out some of their pet projects to help money that's going to fund that supplemental.
Oh, I don't think there's any question there'll be projects taken out. I will just say that right now.
So is that like a September thing, or is it after the election in November? Or?
No. I think we'll have the budget ready to go. We'll have those vetoes already in place by July.
When you sit and do a supplemental, I assume you.
Oh, the supplemental. No, the supplemental probably won't have to be done maybe this year, but it's coming. Yeah. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, you're kidding yourself and I guess for you, with that Stein there you're talking about, just remember this conversation we had when that supplemental comes through, and let's see what size it is, and I guarantee it'll be pretty substantial.
About a couple of folks that just started, Carl Esslinger over at Desi.
Yeah,
I tell you,
all right.
As somebody that used to, until I met Aaron Cornman, I used to defend education pretty hard. I feel like the people that are in the Capitol, your Rick Francis's, folks like that, I think, you have your charter folks that always have issues with DESE. That's just kind of baked in the cake.
Yeah.
But you had your what I would consider traditional education supporters that were raising alarms. I think Carl Esslinger was the right person for that job. It felt to me like.
I don't think there's any question. Carl brings some stability to that. Look, not everybody gets along. I don't get along with everything DESE does, but the point of it is that leadership does matter.
Yeah.
And Margie's did a great job. I mean, she's been a friend but I think Carla, with her experience, with her background, being a former superintendent, being in the legislature, knowing about those other issues, I think that's a big plus for her. I think she's just, again, she adds a little common sense to it and realizes there's a balance you have to find.
I've watched a lot of folks talk big walking into your office. And my gut was always they didn't quite talk so big once they were across the desk from you. Yeah. But I do think, DESE, if there's not some changes, if they don't follow in line behind Carla, I think you could see some major gutting of that in the legislature.
Oh, I think that's all part of this process. Yeah. I think it's part of the process some of the people were putting on there. I think, look, you cannot just – bureaucrats and departments cannot just do business the way they always do it. Yep. We live in a world of change every day, and you've got to be able to adapt to that.
COVID really changed schools.
COVID is.
I mean, ain't every place Wheatland where you can, COVID changed the way people think of schools, and I don't know that it ever goes back.
Well, how do you ever make it up? And you're not going to. There's going to be a generation there that's not going to have a good education. That's all there is to it. I don't care how you sugarcoat it. And I think the other thing is you look, it's not always just schools that are poor performing stuff. We really have the highest, probably lack of attendance that we've ever had because people just don't go to school sometimes. Kids just don't go to school. And I mean, I would say in my day, it was a big deal if you got a perfect attendance, or people used to go. Nowadays, I don't think that's a big deal.
I saw kids at Neelyville that got that. I never got that. That weather would get kind of nice in April, and I'd kind of want to go do something else. I might have I'm that Ferris Bueller fake clammy hands.
I'm a little guilty too.
I'm talking about one thing though. I think you've got one of those honorary linemen.
I do.
United Fiber. I've showed this before. Way up in West Missouri.
I like that too.
They got this. Have you been to a bunch of county co-op meetings, right?
Yeah.
This is the best electric co-op free gifts I've ever seen. The old frying pan.
The best.
They do it right. I think, when you talk about spending the rural broadband money, they're at the front of it. And obviously when you come to town, the Courtyard by Marriott, I love the hotel. It's so nice to be able to take folks, put them up somewhere nice. They let us bring the midweek update to you. When you're leaving the office, whoever it is.
Yeah.
I guess the advice might be a little different depending on the person. But what are you going to tell that person to look for and try to do?
I'll try to give them the best advice I can. The one thing I guarantee I will tell them, it's never about the governor's last name. So get over that. It's not about Carnahan. It's not about Blunt. It's not about Greitens. It's not about Nixon. It's not about Parson. It's about the office of governor. That's the one thing you need to focus on, and that's your job, is to protect the office of governor and be that.
On some level, it's got to feel nice that you can say, I took the office at one of its lowest points in the history of our state. And whether people disagree with you, they agree with you, whether they're fans of you, they voted for you. I don't think there's any, even your most fiercest opponents would say you haven't left it in one of the highest states it's ever been.
Well, I hope so. Somebody asked me the other day that, they kind of said, hey, what do you want somebody to say about you when you're out? If somebody says, you did a pretty good job, that's all I care about.
But we talk about the office. The accomplishments are there. Maybe somebody else could have had similar accomplishments. Who knows? But as far as the office you inherited and the way the Missourians, you go to an airport and say you're from Missouri, you were part of a joke.
Yeah.
Now, ain't nobody joking about Missouri. It is an office that has been restored with integrity and decency. And to me, there's a lot of things you can point to. They're impressive.
Yeah.
If you're the abortion stuff. If you're a liberal Democrat, maybe they're not impressive. Yeah. But I don't even think those folks would say, he's a good man. That office is back, and whoever he hands it to, he's going to hand it to him in good shape.
It will be. And that's just the way I've done business all my life, and that's the way I think we all should conduct ourselves. Regardless who the next governor is, I'm going to sit down with them. I'm going to tell them what I know. I'll tell them ins and outs and try to make the transition much smoother than what I had. I guarantee that.
Well, I don't think it's possible to have a less smooth. Governor Gamble might be the only person that had a harder road to hoe.
Oh, gosh.
But you talk about that in the book, right, a little bit. He took over. This
I
book,
do.
No Turning Back. You wrote this with Mr. Jones, right?
Yep. Mr.
Blair
Jones
Oaks'
wrote it.
own.
Yeah.
My son's out there. I tell you, the old boy knows how to run a school. I mean, he left it in good shape. This book is neat. Where can folks find this book?
Well, it's online. You can just look up MikeParson.com to be able to that. No turning back. You'll be able to get to it. It's $30 a book. All the money goes to the First Lady's Foundation. But the book will tell you stories about my life, about where I came from and how I got to where I got to today. But I hope the one thing people get out of the book, and I do believe they will, you're going to understand that you don't have to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth to be successful. You don't have to you don't have to be a person of privilege. You don't have to be groomed for anything. You just got to work hard and you got to treat people right and you got to use common sense and you got to have, I do believe you got to have faith, family, and freedom at the forefront. And if you got those three things somewhere in there, you'll be fine.
I've been so lucky. The people of Missouri are very generous and have given me political memorabilia. I promise you, I keep it all. We're going to update how we catalog, but I had somebody send me this. It's a Margaret Kelly for governor. Maybe think of Mark Ellinger. That's how you got his start in the auditor's office back in the day. Jerry, I sure appreciate it. Thank you very much for sending that to me. If I don't give it to Ellinger, he'll keep it in a good spot. I'll keep it here. You can come see it when you come to town. Let's talk about the Royals and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Now, I would think it might be a burr in your saddle to see those Chiefs move to Kansas.
Oh, it'd be a big burr in my saddle.
What do you do, though? I mean, if Kansas is willing to come to the table with a bunch of money, I remember when the Cardinals Stadium was done.
Yeah,
they said they didn't put public money into it, but Bill McKenna was chair of MoDOT. There was some. I'm sure that was true when it was said, but you might be able to pencil whip that and question it.
Yeah.
Is there a way the state can come to the table and compete with Kansas?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I don't know what Kansas is going to come up with and what kind of proposal they're going to be. I know they use the star bonds over there, and that gets a little complicated when you start talking about that on the air here. I mean, but look, we're going to be competitive. We've been competitive. You know, it's like the Cardinals. We've helped the Cardinals. We've helped the Blues. We helped the Rams when the Ram was here. Of course, that didn't turn out so well. But there's ways we can do things that we think is a good investment for the state of Missouri. But if you think Kansas is going to walk over here and just say, hey, we come to get you, we're going to carry across state line, I don't think that's going to happen. There's lots of things we can do.
You might just give them the Royals, right? Because, I mean, that's about 3 dozen fans and some players' moms. I mean,
you might be a little prejudiced on that issue.
No, folks, I knew he was running.
I'm guessing you're still hung up on that first base call.
Yes, the 1026 terrorist attack. Yes, I knew he was running statewide when I come in your office and I saw a Chiefs helmet, which had been there for a long time, and then I saw a Cardinal helmet on that wall in that office. I think it's the office that Lincoln has now. The office that Lincoln has or Brown has, and on that shelf, just like if this was your desk, the shelf was over there. And I noticed that helmet went from Chiefs only to Chiefs Cardinals, and I'm like, oh, he's running for statewide office. There's no question now. He's like everybody else in the state. He's a Chiefs Cardinal fan, and this is back when the Rams were still here, but nobody cared or noticed. It was they were the Royals of St. Louis. What is the time frame? I mean, because Kansas said they're having a special session.
I think you see what happens there, Scott. But then you got to see what the Royals want to do. I mean, where do the Royals want to go? They want to be in Kansas City. Do they still want to stay in Jackson County? There's other options out there. And then
that Northland site, I thought, made some sense. It surprised me they just dismissed that out of hand.
I wouldn't say that that's totally dismissed.
Yeah, to me, if there was an option B, boy, I thought those Northland guys put together a good proposal.
It is just a matter, when you look at something like that, when you really start penciling out, you got to find out, okay, who can put something together for 25, 40 years? And what other options do you have? Maybe you're out there doing something for the Royals and you separate the two totally and you say, okay, we're going to do something for the Royals or somebody's going to do something for them and then somebody's going to do something for the Chiefs.
I don't
always
know if
been a package deal.
Pessimistic that you let the Chiefs leave Missouri. Am I right to be pessimistic that you do?
I don't think you have to worry about that too much.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I got 6 months to go, but within 6 months, I'll do everything I can to keep them here in Missouri.
State Fair. Speaking of things that are going to tug at your heartstrings, I remember the first State Fair as governor, you didn't have a traditional inaugural ball and all that. You had a State Fair, and the folks were so thrilled to see a guy from down the road in an office like governor, and that you loved them, and you could feel it. I mean, I followed you a little bit and just watched. It meant so much to folks at that fair that you were there, that you were governor. They could point to their kids. Like you said, you ain't got to be wheeling silver spoon. You can be born down the road there in Wheatland,
Yeah.
and you can live down in Bolivar and come to State Fair your whole life, and you can be governor too.
Yeah.
I just, in my gut, it feels like it's going to be a little sentimental to go to that State Fair in August.
There's no doubt about that, man. I love that fair, and I love the people there. You're just talking about, it's just, you just feel so comfortable there.
Mhm.
You know, I don't have to be anybody but who I am, long before I was ever governor. And the people know that. When you're from the cities and you try to walk in the fairgrounds and start walking through the cattle barns, and people know right away, you know anything about agriculture, do you not? They know. Matter of fact, last year I was there, and this girl was showing one of her steers in there, and all of a sudden the steer decides to take a dump, I'll say, and splatter comes on my shirt. Everybody's going like, "Oh my gosh, it's Panic City!"
I went the first time,
you
right?
Just flip it off, you just go on. You know, you go
Probably
on.
the first time that's happened.
It's like, what's so big a deal about this? You know, it's not the end of the world here. Nobody has any control over it. So it's those kind of people. I mean, I love being around them.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm kind of not, because I figure if you get in your feelings, and everybody's going to get in their feelings pretty quick. It's going to be a very interesting, like I said, I think bittersweet. It'll be a nice celebration, but it'll be a touch bittersweet.
Bring your stein. We may have a bud after the concert or something.
I'll absolutely do it. The last thing, give me a place that you found being governor that you probably went to because you was governor that was neat. If somebody in this state, give me a jewel you found they ought to go look. There are 2 or 3 of them.
Oh, that I found about the state of Missouri?
I'll give you one. Go for the weekend to downtown Hannibal. It's great. They do a great job, about like Jeff City, putting on festivals and stuff every so often.
Yeah.
I tell you, you go for one of them festivals in Hannibal, and you're going to have a great time. You take the kids. It is absolutely fun.
You know, some of the things, and hopefully we get a chance to reflect on some of this, but I remember going to Herman one time.
Oh, man.
And he's talking about Hannibal, made me think of Herman. We go in there one night, me and Teresa goes in there unannounced. We just go over there, detail lets us out. And my cousins are with me. And I said, hey, there's no saloon in here. I want you to go in here. Let's go in there. Let's have a drink, you know. So we go in there, and we just walk in there like 2 couples, you know, and we're sitting at the table here, and we're all chit-chatting. And all of a sudden, the buzz starts looking at him. And this one gal come up, and she was a nice lady, but I mean, she'd been having a good time celebrating her birthday or something. But it was almost humorous. It's those moments like that you just realize you're just a normal person. And she was in awe, and it was just kind of neat to be around her and make her day, you know. And she wanted pictures, all she wanted.
Yeah, you get back in the car and say, Teresa, did you see that? This guy wanted a picture of me and a Brittany.
There was no doubt she was. It was good, but I think the thing, Scott, if you go back and look, I've met so many great people along the way that I would have never met, that I would have never been involved with. You know, I love the state, no matter where I go. If I go to Boot Hill, if I go downtown St. Louis to some of the areas that are pretty rough, you know, I still enjoy going. There's a lot of good people down there.
There's a lot of good people there.
You know, they just need a little help. And I don't mean a hand out. I mean a hand up type of help. But there's just a lot of good people I've met that I'll always remember going through everything I've went through in the 6-year period of time. You know, anytime you go through trials in your life, and we've all been through them in some fashion, you'll always remember who the people were that were your friends, that were loyal, and that kind of helped you get through some of the difficult times we did as governor when I was there. And I think those people will always be special to me. And just, you know, just because where I live, I mean, just home, people in this state are good people. And sometimes we get caught up on the different, because somebody believes one different thing in one subject than we do. That's not really who the person is. You know, I mean, they may agree with you 90% of the time on most other things. Doesn't mean they're bad people, because we don't agree on everything.
Governor Mike Parson, 57th governor of the great state of Missouri. Thank you so much for the time. I sure appreciate it.
Scott, always appreciate your friendship. Gray, you've done a great job, and you've been a friend over the years.
I'm drinking enough water, I can pick it up one hand. We'll see you Sunday for This Week in Missouri Politics. Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman will be on the show. And Monday, we're going to bring you a guy, an old buddy of mine who's running for Congress. Ray Hartman's going to join us Monday at 11 here on the